Was it legal? Was it necessary? Would I have done it? They took down the whole criminal enterprise. It wasn't just about making an arrest. It was about, okay, where are these cars going? Oh, are they getting picked up and going to a chop shop? Trayvon Martin wasn't killed by a cop, and somehow that became a police issue. Like, wait a second, again, if we're gonna at least get yell at us for stuff we actually do.
I want to start with because talked a lot about policing and such last time, and I want to start with because regardless of what one person's opinion on the police may be, whether they're more anti or pro police, I think that everyone can agree that there is kind of a disconnect between maybe community trust and policing. I think body cams were kind of a huge first step with like transparency and kind of bridging that gap. I'm curious if you have any other solutions or if in your experience, if there were things you did that maybe personally helped bridge that gap, or how do you think we get to a place where people just generally trust cops? And obviously, I think there is general trust, but maybe the communities with less trust where we can kind of start bridging that gap.
I mean, I think I think there are sort of two different parts to it. One are people who deal with cops and others who don't, and are sort of judging how police act based on what they think other people believe, or like, or videos they see. Um, I mean, police. I actually think the crisis of police trust is overstated. The public, by and large, by huge margins, embraces the police and trusts the police, and also, especially among Black Americans, wants better policing. But even when I worked, and this was, mind you, 25 years ago, in East Baltimore, uh, I wouldn't say that, no, I was not universally loved as a cop, but there was still a lot of love out there for cops because, given the choice of, you know, being being a victim of a crime or seeing a cop around, most people always choose a cop. Now, no, it's not perfect. A lot of cops are young. A lot of cops are stupid. I actually think I was a better cop, and I mean in that sort of PR is not a great way to put it, but for shorthand, just in how you treat people and how they feel treated.
I'm curious, just quickly to follow up. Do you think more of the burden in doing this and fixing this lies with the police and maybe getting out there and trying to connect with the community, or do you think it lies more so in these communities with maybe getting past these preconceived notions or bias or whatever it may be that causes this?
Look, on each interaction, I'd say it's usually more so on the police officer. Now, there are some exceptions. There are people and groups that go out and harass cops trying to do their job, active, get in their face in the name of cop watch or whatever. And it's one thing to, if you have a certain amount of distance, if that's what you want to do with your free time, knock yourself out. I prefer to, I got many things I prefer to do. Uh, but I mean, they're out there, the sort of, and protest. You get the ACAB crowd or the Antifa crowd. But by and large, if you're just a cop answering the radio and going on calls, doing your job, yeah, it's on you. You're the person of authority. You're the one being paid to be there. You treat people hopefully with a certain amount of professionalism. Um, but again, I think it's a little bit the whole of a red herring in that if cops do their job effectively, I think the public will cut them so much slack, perhaps even too much to some extent. People want to feel safe, and that is more important actually than almost any other thing cops do. And if you're the one that called cops because other people are, destroying the hallway in your building or whatever, and cops are rude to you, I mean that's unfortunate, but it's people contain multitudes. They can both say, "Man, yeah, that why that cop treat me that way?" But I still need that kind of policing, and if the policing actually solves the problem, they'll go, "Well, all right, whatever." People got thick skin by and large.
You said a thing that I thought was interesting. You said that we don't have to address the root causes to bring down violent crime. And I would agree with you that we don't have to. I think that obviously more policing, less crime is going to happen. I would more, my, I guess, question or pushback or however you would want to word it would be kind of on the should we. Because I do think that there is, like, in my opinion, what I think drives crime is kind of a blend between desperation, opportunity, and then the absence of like fear, like, kind of people do crime for thrills. And if they feel like they won't get in trouble for it, that's kind of a big driver. And I think policing kind of only addresses that one, which to me, I feel like if we're only addressing one of what I would consider three things, it keeps us in a cycle where we're always going to need police and more police or more policing as we get more people. Is that something you see as an issue, or do you think that policing would kind of address all of these things in the long run?
With good leadership, it could. I'm not. It doesn't. It automatically. I'm happy you mentioned thrills because people often forget that or don't want to admit that. A lot of crime is fun. You get an adrenaline rush. Um, and that, I mean, yeah, that's an important part because crime prevention is problem solving, and some of that's figuring out why are people doing this. So, arresting car thieves only goes so far. I think you do need to do that, and perhaps not release them immediately as we do now in New York. Because, a night in jail can be a deterrent because you might go, oh, remember that time that we stole the car and then it didn't end up so good, as opposed to we stole the car, we got arrested, and now I'm home and the life of the party with a good story. But what the NYPD did back in '90s when, I mean, and car theft has gone down dramatically, and some of that is better designed for cars. But they took down the whole criminal enterprise. It wasn't just about making an arrest. It was about, okay, where are these cars going? Oh, are they getting picked up and going to a chop shop? Are they being abandoned because it was just a joyride? Are they, stripped for parts? Well, if they're going to a chop shop, let's go investigate that chop shop. So it was looking at the whole sort of the whole pathway of crime, um, and trying to really just knock down those enterprises. Um, Ironically, gun violence is one of the easier things to police if you have the political will, because almost all guns used in crimes, certainly in a place like New York, are illegal. 1990 New York had 2,262 murders, and now it's around 300. I mean, and it's not just murder. I trust that statistic, but all the other crimes dropped in that same dramatic amount, and the benefits, the trauma that wasn't experienced, the trauma that wasn't transmitted through, both laterally and intergenerationally and all that. I mean, you can't have nice things if you don't feel safe. And I mean that, literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, and the other quick follow-up that I had was on, you said about leadership and kind of the viral shootings and being able to draw the line, and I'm going to ask you maybe if you don't have one off top, that's fine, but do you have maybe an example? I think it could be helpful for painting the picture of what you mean, of maybe a shooting that you do think was too far, and then one you think is like maybe it went viral for being too far, but you think maybe, hey, no, this is actually one that the cop should have stood on, and like to kind of draw that difference.
Boy, I know a lot of them. Bad shootings. I mean, they go back. Some I can't remember all the names. Philando Castillo, that was the one in Minnesota, right? I thought that was just a bad shooting. Um, it's interesting because Trayvon Martin wasn't killed by a cop, and somehow that became a police issue. Like, wait a second, again, if we're gonna at least yell at us for stuff we actually do. Who was the kid in the park in Cleveland on that winter day?
Oh, yeah, no, I know who you're
Peter
talking about.
Rice.
Yeah, yep.
That one was bad policing, but I also want to say the guy pointed a realistic gun, and if you do that, I mean, here's the basic thing: if you point a gun at a cop, I want the cops to shoot before they're shot, and the cops don't know if the gun is real or not. Don't be holding that gun, or unless if you are holding that gun, yeah, expect it. Very good chance you might be shot. Um, the kid in Chicago that ended up, you know, well, years later with the his name was Toledo. He shouldn't have been firing a gun at 1 a.m. or whenever it was on a school night, but instead the mayor basically said the problem was spot shotter and cops chasing this kid with a gun. Like what? No. Um,
I'm sorry. I'm curious what you think of just like other attacks. I don't remember her name, and you might not have seen the shooting, but there was one that went viral a while ago. And it was a lady who I think she had like boiling water or something and like tried to flip it at the officer. Do you think like do you kind of just draw the line at if you come at the officer, you're kind of going to get what's coming to you? Do you think it needs to be some level drawn on like,
so let me, I So they're like three different. There's a third category. There's one, was it legal? Was it necessary? Would I have done it? Um, that can you defend it legally is actually pretty broad and gets cops off with a lot of questionable shootings. I don't like that one, but it is a split second decision. I think it was the wrong decision. I don't think it was criminal. Um, I don't like it though. Um, I don't like it at all. So then what do you do? And then you get in, then, you know, then you need better training. You need that threat perception. But I also don't want cops to get boiling water thrown on them. But I
Right.
don't quite understand at that moment how shooting stopped didn't actually stop that threat. So that's part of the reason I question it. But, I have been in risky situations. I never fired my gun on duty, but that was probably because I was only on the street for a year, a little more than a year. Um, and it is those gray area ones. But strangely, those are. I mean, that I know the one you're talking about. Often, I'm baffled to me. Cops shoot and kill in America about 1,000 a year, and most of those are pretty clear cut. But it's interesting that how some gain traction, and recently in the past couple years they haven't. I think there was almost this once body cams became common. People were kind of amazed to see these videos. Um, and I don't know whether it's desensitized or people have moved on. Um, I suspect that some of the lack of attention given to police behavior recently is because of Israel and Palestine. Like there's a lot of overlap in the people who were protesting and complaining, and they moved on from policing for probably for better for the sake of policing. Um, but I hate going. I mean, I will like judge incident by incident and Monday morning quarterback because I feel like in a way that's my job to talk about these things. But it's not about the incident. I mean, if it's criminal, charge the cop. If it's really bad and it happens, more than once, fire the cop. Um, but man, and I always hate saying this, but it is a big country and shit happens. Um, I don't know, we're never going to stop it. So, for a while it was like every week here's another, and I go, this one's kind of okay, this one's not, and you have to take into account human reaction time. If we want to lessen the bad shootings, and you do that through elevating the profession, you do that through better training, you do that through good sergeants. That's the hard work. It's actually, it's not going to happen from a top outside in sort of reform. Seattle, Washington just got out of, I think, a 20-year consent decree. It was a long time. I could be off on the number,
Mm.
and um, however many years later, there were 1,400 cops. Now they're 900. The city's grown in population. The murder rate is like quadrupled. And somehow, that you check the boxes and you declared success. I don't know Seattle that well, but I refuse to believe that police department is better now with fewer people and more murders than it was back then. Um, it just, that's not the way to make things better, but it's hard to, I mean, I can say, oh, we need good leadership. Yeah. How do you get that? I don't know. Um, so it's not something you can just sort of clone or scale up necessarily, but it really does come down to that. Holding people within the organization accountable, having a certain amount of standards, but I, yeah, those aren't so easy to operationalize, and they require buy-in from the organization. It can't just be, we don't like you, therefore we're saying you must do this or can't do that. That rarely is a productive way to make things better.